Welcome to another episode of Cherry Bekaert's Tax Services Podcast. I'm Laurel Tinsley, partner at Cherry Bekaert and leader of the Strategic Financing Services team. Today's podcast is called Fueling Revitalization, New Market Tax Credits, Policy Shifts, and the Innovate Fund in Action. Today, we're exploring how tax policy and strategic financing can come together to drive real impact in communities through tools like the New Market Tax Credit Program. Cherry Bekaert Strategic Financing Services works across the New Market Tax Credit Program and deeply in communities to raise, deploy, and manage capital. We work with both community development entities and Qualic Bs. And today's episode is a great time to also highlight that a pivotal moment has happened in the new market tax credit industry with the passage of One Big Beautiful Bill. Signed into law on July 4th, 2025, this landmark legislation permanently extends the new market tax credit program, providing long-term certainty for community revitalization efforts. We're very excited. The permanent extension, effective January 1st, 2026, maintains the current $5 billion annual allocation cap and introduces a 5-year limit on new market tax credit carryovers. I'm joined today on the podcast by Emma Wyatt, our Chief Operating Officer of the Innovate Fund, or TIF for short. Emma has been instrumental in structuring deals that go beyond financial outcomes to create meaningful, long-lasting change in communities we serve. We also work really closely with the Innovate Fund across a number of platforms. Emma, we're so happy to have you here today. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit about the Innovate Fund?
Thank you, Laurel. I'm really excited to be here. I'm also just really excited to be at the Innovate Fund in this really fun and pivotal time in the new market tax credit industry. So like you said, we're excited that the new market tax credit has reached permanence. The Innovate Fund is a community development entity, or CDE for short. We have been active across a 6-state service area for almost 20 years, with the majority of our work being focused around the Greenville, South Carolina and upstate of South Carolina communities. We are a CDE that focuses on impacts that are twofold. We like to look for projects that create quality jobs, and then we like to see projects that have health and wellness outcomes for a community. All of our work and our mission is driven by transforming communities.
Great. So starting with a little bit more about the Innovate Fund, I know we've talked a little bit about the impacts that you're trying to have. Can you tell us a little bit more about the number of states that the Innovate Fund serves?
Happy to break down the Innovate Fund's structure in a little more detail. The Innovate Fund is a for-profit community development entity. We have 2 owners. Our majority owner is the Greenville Local Development Corporation, and our minority owner is Cherry Bekaert. We are active in 6 states, North and South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Virginia, and West Virginia. And we prioritize investments in non-metro and minor metro communities and Appalachian Regional Commission counties. Our partnerships with Cherry Bekaert have led us to do a lot of neat deals that are across the Cherry Bekaert footprint. We partner with the Strategic Financing Services team and their consultants frequently to identify deals, but we're also out in the marketplace on our own, working with other consultants and communities to identify deals that are unique to the Innovate Fund.
Great. And I know part of the driving influence of the 2 owners of the Innovate Fund has been that deeply rooted sense of community. Very excited about that. We've talked about the idea of this community, but I think it might be helpful for those not as familiar with new market tax credits if we zoom out for a second and talk about why we're so excited. What are the new market tax credits, and why is this such an important part to community development?
The new market tax credit is an extremely powerful community development financing tool. The program has been around since the year 2000, and now we have permanent extension, so we're excited to see the future of the program. But essentially, it's designed to encourage developers to make investments in low-income communities, and the New Markets provides a risk buffer. So there's perceived risk in making investments in low-income communities. The New Markets helps mitigate those risks. When we look for a new market tax credit project, we are looking at 4 primary criteria. First and foremost, is it in a low-income community? These communities are designated by their census tract based on the amount of people in poverty, the median family income, and unemployment rates. We're looking at the biggest projects that are happening in a community. Our minimum project size is usually around $5 million. We're looking for significant community impact. Maybe that's through job creation, maybe it's health and wellness patients served, maybe it's students educated in a daycare facility. At the end of the day, we need to be able to measure how the project has changed the community. And then finally, we're looking at projects that have a financing gap. The new markets is the but for money. This project would not happen but for the influx of new market tax credit financing. And at the end of the day, too, we're measuring how is this project really going to be catalytic in a community and do something that wouldn't have happened without this investment.
It's great. You really highlighted a lot of the priorities that the Innovate Fund is looking for, and talked about the different partners in the communities. One of the things that might be helpful for our listeners is to talk about how the Innovate Fund really influences the deals they're in. So what you're looking for is these great projects that have these 4 criteria. But once the Innovate Fund is involved, how does the Innovate Fund help get a better deal done and drive more impacts into the community?
The Innovate Fund really strives to make the majority of our investments come from grassroots efforts, meaning we want to find deals through our connections with local developers, local economic development professionals, and nonprofits across our service area. We rely on the help of our 2 boards. Our first one is our 9-member advisory board. These folks represent professionals in the economic development landscape across our 6 states. They are boots on the ground, the first people to hear about projects and make introductions between those deals and the Innovate Fund on a weekly basis. So we are constantly having conversations with projects to introduce them to the new market tax credit program, educate them on using this tool in their capital stack, and then connecting them with the right partners with the hopeful future of investing our new markets allocation in that deal. We also rely on our operating board, who has deep roots in our service area, particularly in the Greenville, South Carolina area. Once we have a project that we've selected through our advisory board and operating board review process, we are a partner. We look to be involved in the community on an ongoing basis. We look to provide our clients, our borrowers, with other services. We frequently call on the Cherry Bekaert team to analyze these projects for other potential benefits. Cherry Bekaert's tax credits and incentives team, for example, frequently looks at our projects as 179D deduction projects, or they look at site selection opportunities. So once we find a project, we're not done just at the day of closing. We continue to hold hands for the 7 years and beyond.
That's great. I think listening is one of the things I heard you say you do, learning from the community and then connecting people to, additional benefits. So that's wonderful. I love all of those things. We've talked about a lot of wonderful ideas about what the Innovate Fund, but with all that's happening around this tax legislation right now, how do you see the future of the new market program? Do you see any changes coming based on the legislation, the permanence, or any of the related policy measures that have been coming out?
That's an interesting question. The industry is certainly at an interesting time. There's some who speculate that it's no longer as volatile, so we'll see bigger investments from communities who say, we need to invest in education on what new market tax credit are and how to use them. And then we also might see more businesses becoming interested in the program to say, well, in 10 years, we might do a big development. And now we see this horizon, including new market tax credits as a potential in 10 years. So it's actually something we can plan for.
So from our perspective at the Innovate Fund, education is so big right now, and it's key to making sure that people are aware that the new market tax credit program is on the ground and here to stay. Now we can see that the new market tax credit could potentially be implemented into long-range planning tools, like a local government going through a comprehensive planning strategy. Maybe they look 10 years down the future and are able to identify low-income communities that would be great recipients of new market tax credits if the right project exists. We're excited about these long-term benefits of the program being permanent.
I think one of the things that I'm hearkening back to thinking of the 20 plus years in this industry is the beauty of new markets is that it's flexible. So it was able to meet the devastation after Katrina and the hurricanes that have happened across the eastern seaboard. It's been able to answer different calls with FEMA distress and other things, but that's sort of the wonderful part of new markets is you just never know what, nobody has a crystal ball to know what's coming next. But certainly I think the fact that we were able to, as an industry, be flexible to meet more healthcare outcomes after COVID, that, the wonderful part of new markets is that whatever's coming next, I think new markets is going to be positioned to be able to be an innovative player in that next chapter. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share about the Innovate Fund or new markets or just strategic financing, or just any, last 2 cents of advice for anybody thinking about getting into new markets?
The Innovate Fund has been around for a long time, but that doesn't mean we're not also looking at that horizon of how we can change and how we can grow. So we're actually going through a large strategic planning process right now that's going extremely well. It's contemplating who are we beyond new market tax credits, what type of work can we do to value the partnerships we've built over our history, and looking to serve our communities better. So if you're listening to this podcast and you think that you're in one of our 6 states, or you're just really in tune with how the Innovate Fund structures our investments and shares our investment priorities, please feel free to reach out and share how there might be a chance for us to work together to help low-income communities. And then now, as the new market tax credit is on the highway at full speed, I encourage other entities who are like the Innovate Fund, maybe place-based or looking into new market tax credits as a potential tool for their community, to definitely dive in and explore how it might work. And Laurel and her team is a fantastic resource at Cherry Bekaert for a variety of different players in this industry. And so I'd encourage you to reach out to the Cherry Bekaert team for assistance.
Thank you. As one of our clients, but also our special friend, I appreciate that thoughtful shout out for looking to what's next. And certainly the Innovate Fund has given a lot of technical assistance to both QualicBs, which are the projects that are financed in low-income communities, and to other community development entities in the area. I know that you are often answer questions from people, so you can call Emma if you've got some questions. But if you have questions, our team is also here to help. We lead community development entities and CDFIs into the new market tax credit arena, and we also help projects receive funding from new markets and other places. Wow. Well, I'm really excited about this time in our new market tax credit history, and it's clear you are too, Emma. So thank you for joining us today. It's clear that there's a powerful tool that's now permanent, and I'm sure there are other tools that we can unpack when we get through all the pages of the one big beautiful bill that we all find that can go together nicely with new market tax credits. So thanks for your perspective and sharing your thoughts on the Innovate Fund and how we can work together. Thank you all for joining us. We hope that the conversation sparks some ideas of what you think you might want to do in your community. If there's anything that we can do to help you, please reach out. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to catching up with you next time.